Hajj, I think lots of walking, lots of movement of the body. I think of using my feet. Your advice in terms of how much I should walk, how little, and what I should do.
The journey of Hajj is a journey where even the one who considers themselves to be physically challenged will have to do time on their feet. That being said, your feet, arguably, other than all your spirituality, are the most important physical asset you have. In a situation of having to move from place to place, or in having to move to a different place because of certain things that may be untoward in terms of the circumstances or the crowding, your feet are what are going to carry you. Looking after your feet and giving them the necessary care is important, but more so knowing that we live in an age of where we undertake everything and all movement on our feet with footwear. Purchasing the correct footwear is just as important. And in purchasing the correct footwear, note that there are different types of materials used to construct footwear. In the manufacture of footwear, there's rubber, there's PVC, there's leather, there's plastic, there's suede, etc. One needs to know what works on one's feet. How do you know this? Um, in purchasing footwear that's compliant for a haram, based on what the scholars say, one would need to see which materials work best with your feet. And the important idea is that you walk the footwear in. So you asked how much of walking. Walk the footwear in from the time you purchase the pair. For some of us traveling for Hajj, right now we're still experiencing some portion of winter, most of us in the southern hemisphere. Those in the northern hemisphere, well, it's summer and you'll be experiencing Hajj in summer for the next few years, inshallah. So for you, it's not too much of a challenge. But for us, we couldn't be wearing sandals, walking outside. Well, then wear socks with the sandals so that the actual footwear gets walked in to some extent. You'll be doing lots of walking in Madinatul Munawwara and in Makkah al-Mukarramah, going to either Masjid al-Nabawi or Masjid al-Haram every day for Salah. Use this footwear. But note that, as we mentioned, it's one of your most valuable assets. Keep it close to you. So don't be careless about where you leave your footwear when you enter any of the masajid. For if you lose the spare that you've invested in, not only financially, but by walking in, then you got to start all over again. How much of walking during this time? Well, the walking that you'll be undertaking from your hotel to Masjid al-Nabawi or your hotel to Masjid al-Haram in Makkah al-Mukarramah, to and fro, and all the walking that you'll be undertaking on all the tawafs before the actual days of Hajj will put you in, inshallah, a very good stead to be able to undertake the walking that will be required on the days of Hajj. On the days of Hajj, the distance that you'd cover jointly between means of conveyance or transport or on your feet could include as much as 35 kilometers within 5 to 6 days. Be prepared to be able to undertake that on your feet.
So the looking after your feet, besides the choice of footwear, how do you look after your feet in preparation for the journey?
In preparation for the journey of Hajj and on the journey before the actual days of Hajj, the important idea of trying to save yourself from being in areas where there's excessive crowding, knowing that not deliberately, but sometimes someone may step on your foot. You may break a toenail, you may break a toe, you may fracture a toe, and this is going to compromise you. Beyond that, the idea of knowing that in most instances you won't be wearing closed footwear because it's just too hot, so you may not even be wearing socks. So regular washing of your feet, coupled with the step that we always miss out, which is also drying of your feet up to the extent of drying between your toes, would mean that your feet are always kept clean, and they are free from from germs, etc., that may give you certain types of fungi or algae that would also compromise you and may even lead to you losing a toe permanently. This would, inshallah, assist in being able to look after your feet. There's going to be a need for a good pedicure after you have undertaken Hajj. So this
After, not before.
not really before, but definitely after, because your feet would be subjected to this close on 35 kilometers if you walked all the legs. And this is where the spouses come in handy and the children come in handy when you return home.
You speak about building capacity. It's been a theme throughout our discussions. Do you build capacity for walking before you undertake your journey from your home country?
Yes. Hujjaj or prospective Hujjaj must build capacity. We sometimes find it difficult to walk because of the challenges of our schedules and our routines and our individual timetables. What works well for me is to look at the city you're in and see some of the big walking events and jot them down from months before Hajj. So from the time you know that you'll be undertaking this journey of Hajj, go on to the different race events, whether walking or running. Preferably look out for the walking ones and try and see if you can make those part of your routine. It's much easier to cover 10 kilometers in a crowd with watering points, etc., as opposed to deciding on a Sunday morning or on some morning that you're free, or afternoon or evening, I'm going to walk X amount.
And that replicates the reality of a very crowded period of a Hajj anyway.
Undoubtedly.
Lastly, what happens if you don't do the capacity building? You don't do the walks beforehand, but you undertake the Hajj.
If you don't do the walks beforehand, Alhamdulillah, Allah has sequenced Hajj in such a way that, as we mentioned earlier on, walking to and fro from the hotel to Masjid al-Nabawi or Masjid al-Haram would allow for some of it, but naturally the one who is trained more is better prepared for this ultimate human challenge that encapsulates not only the physical but also the spiritual and the emotional.